I think Tony Khan has this visceral fear of CM Punk leaving AEW and somehow finding a way back to WWE and becoming successful. Because I think on so many levels, that will expose so many problems inside of the AEW company.
Notorious. Big it up, big it up.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Casual Wrestling Community Show, the #1 rated wrestling podcast for casual wrestling fans. I am NerdyD. You are the CWC, and we have a lot to talk about tonight. We will preview the Payback card, book WWE out of its tag team slump, but first, I have a little bit of housekeeping I want to get through before we start the show. So we are entering into what I'm going to call Season 3 of Casual Wrestling Community content. From here on out, the content that I produce will run in 3-month blocks. So before we decide what shows are staying, what shows are going, there'll be 3-month blocks where I test things out, where I do things, where I run different promotions, all that kind of good stuff. But we're going to run seasonal content from here on out. And this first season will run a little bit longer. I'm going to run this one through the end of December, but then starting 2024, there'll be 4 seasons of content every year. And there's a few changes that are going to happen on the channel to be aware of. The content is going to get a little more broken up than probably what you're used to. We typically have done a just 1 hour plus podcast every Wednesday, and then I've sprinkled random content throughout the week that some people watch, some people don't. Some of it's on YouTube, some of it's on podcast networks, and I'm gonna try and clean all of that up. So we're gonna break up the content a little bit more and try to break up the monotony of the week. Starting this week, I've already tested one out. There will be a Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown post-show following each of those respected television events. So after the show's over, I'm going to get on, I'm going to record a 30-minute episode kind of breaking down what you might have missed, deeper dives into what happened, my analysis, all of that good stuff so that you can consume that content immediately. You can probably consume it later that night if you're still awake, but if not, it'll be there for you on Tuesday and Saturday for you to check out and kind of take a deeper dive into what you saw on SmackDown and Raw. It will be a very topical kind of in-the-moment picture of what's going on in wrestling. Whereas this show, the Casual Wrestling Show, is going to go back to being more of a podcast and less of a segmented sports-style show, more conversational and less like newsy, as I think it's kind of shifted to in the last couple of weeks. This show's going to focus more on listener feedback, less topical topics, more hypotheticals. When it does do topical stuff, this show is going to hit on the big kind of in-your-face news that can't be avoided, but it's not going to get into the ins and outs of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. We'll leave that for the 2 post shows. Now, I've gotten messaged quite a bit lately about content with Lauren. And I've been teasing a show called The Champ and the Chick for the last couple of weeks, which is actually going to premiere next week. We were going to do one this week. The Bray Wyatt stuff happened. Didn't think it was appropriate to drop kind of a comedy show that week. So we're going to let that ride. We're going to drop one next week. That show will have some of the segments you guys have been asking about that you guys used to love. The 10 questions will return. Name Your Tag Team will return. We'll do one off topic every week, which is a kind of a spin-off show we were doing for a while where we were doing 4 of them a week, but we'll do one a week. Things like, would you fight a kangaroo? You guys who've listened to the show for a while will know what I'm talking about. But that show's going to be more of a silly kind of variety show that's grounded in wrestling. I think we had an idea that we're gonna microwave a frozen meal every episode, and then at the end of the episode talk about if that food's worthy of eating during Monday Night Raw. All that kind of stuff will happen on that show. So it'll be a silly variety show kind of grounded by wrestling, but all of these shows are going to be posted on YouTube and on podcast networks. That way there's a consistency between both channels, between the YouTube and the podcast network. I feel like Spotify and Apple were kind of getting the shit into the deal. I was posting late. So I'm going to try to treat both of these platforms with the same respect and get all the content onto both platforms. That way, if you're an audio listener, We'll make sure that you get to be up to date with everything we're doing here on the Casual Wrestling channel. Now, I will still be dropping the occasional random hot take video. It's not going to be every night. It'll just be when something big hits that I want to jump on. I will drop that. That will be YouTube exclusive only. Those are just so I can get into the news cycle and try to get those analytics up by hitting on the topics that sometimes I might have a good take, but I'm just, I'm 3 or 4 days too late to hit that kind of YouTube search cycle. And that's the show where I'm going to say the real wild shit that pisses the IWC off. They're going to be 3 to 5 minutes, nothing major. If there's anything worth talking about, it'll roll over into one of the other shows. So if you miss it, you miss it. If not, it'll be there. But that's kind of the rundown through December. We will reassess the content, see what works, see what doesn't. I felt like this show was becoming a little mechanical and less conversational. So I really wanted to kind of dial it back and break things up and create the structure that kind of flowed through the week and gave enough content that if you really like the channel, there's something to watch almost every day of the week. Now, having said that, the goal is to keep all these shows around 30 to 45 minutes to make them manageable listens. I know a few people have expressed to me they like the long format. They like the hour plus. It's just tough to do. It's tough to write for. It's tough to research for. 30 to 45 minutes seems to be the sweet spot. Now, are there going to be times, probably right off the bat, that I go over that time amount? Sure. But the goal is always going to be to write for 30 to 45 minutes. The retention looks better on YouTube. The analytics look better. And that's just kind of the goal I'm going for. So that's housekeeping. I know that was a lot to kind of drop on you guys this week, but I wanted to kind of make it clear that I do have a vision moving forward for this channel, and that's kind of the direction I want to go in the next couple of weeks. So let's jump into the meat of the show. It's been a wild week of wrestling. The CM Punk stuff that has gone on this last week has been absolutely wild. I fully expected to come into this week's show and honestly give an opinion on All In and all the shenanigans that happened at the IWC's biggest show, but that's not the case. That's not what happened. First off, before we get into it, I'll give a shout out to Tony Khan. You filled up Wembley. I'm not sure how many of those people actually paid to be there, but it looks like you put on a decent IWC show. They look happy. They sound happy on the internet. So as long as you appease your fan base, I guess you're doing exactly what you set out to do. I haven't watched the entire show. I've watched a couple matches, watched clips. I intend to watch the entire show at some point this week. I just haven't had the time. But once again, AEW, your biggest headline coming out of one of your biggest events of the year, completely centers around CM Punk. And if you read the dirt sheets, it's tough to decipher at this point what is real and what isn't, right? First report said that CM Punk and Perry got into a fight. I believe that's probably true, right? Then there's the reports that both guys are suspended. I actually believe that's true. Then you have Miro denying everything happened. Then you have other reports that Miro and CM Punk almost got into a fight. Then you have reports that CM Punk walked into Tony Khan's office and has threatened to quit, shoot him out. You have reports that Perry's asked for his release. Sean Ross Sapp says something. Brian Alvarez reports something else. And Dave Meltzer's too busy jerking off to Kenny Omega to give a fuck about any of this that's going on. But this is worst case scenario. This is as bad as it gets for AEW, because every time you have an event of any kind of significance, it seems to be clouded around CM Punk. And I don't think that's CM Punk's fault. I'm not going to jump onto the blame CM Punk, party here. Tony Khan comes out here and says the list of banned things you're not allowed to do in AEW. They made a big deal about this, right? You got to get these things approved by producers. We're going to be a lot more safe. WB doesn't want us doing all this wild shit. But that was all horseshit. That was complete bullshit. Here we go. AEW All In. John Moxley's got fucking barbecue skewers coming out of his head. Jack Perry's doing a spot on Real Glass, turning to the camera, calling out CM Punk. After CM Punk, do you think CM Punk was just telling Jack Perry this stuff to be an asshole? Or do you think CM Punk understands that taking a bump on Real Glass is probably not a good idea? So CM Punk tries to talk him out of spots like that. He mouths off on camera, And then apparently some kind of altercation happens in the back where CM Punk and Jungle Bitch, they get into an altercation and Jungle Bitch gets choked. I don't know, man. I just don't know. I mean, I know there's a lot of CM Punk haters on the internet in the IWC. They're going to blame him no matter what happens. Regardless of what happened, CM Punk is the problem. And I'm going to work off of the assumption that I at least believe, because so many people have reported it, that Jungle Bitch and CM Punk got into an altercation in the gorilla position and CM Punk choked Jungle Bitch out. Or not out, but choked him until they were broken up. That seems to be the most wildly accepted story at this point. But I don't understand this delusion that I see the IWC continue to spew over and over and with IWC logic, and they're trying to place blame on CM Punk in this situation. I see the IWC claiming that if you're CM Punk, you just have to ignore this. You just have to ignore when Adam Page does something. You just have to ignore when the Young Bucks come into your locker room. You just have to ignore when Jack Perry tries to make a fool out of you on a national pay-per-view. This isn't fucking high school. You can't just let guys get a rise out of you. This is real life. The Elite are the mean girls, and they're after CM Punk's livelihood. It is obvious at this point CM Punk does not fit in to what the AEW mean girls have selected as the mold as what you're allowed to be inside of AEW. He wants to do things differently, and they immediately have turned on him. I can tell you this with all honesty. In any situation, especially one where I come into the situation feeling paranoid or feeling under attack by a certain group of people, if somebody comes up to me and gets in my face to start shit, I'm fucking them up first, and I'm figuring out how to deal with it afterwards. Simple. Plain and simple. There's no turning the other cheek. There's no looking the other way. I don't understand that mentality. That's not how I was born. That's not how I'm bred. That's not in my DNA. I don't understand the mentality of letting a fucking 4'7" guy who dresses like Tarzan, who rides on a dinosaur's back half the time. I'm not in the business of letting that guy punk me out. No pun intended. I'm not turning the other cheek. It's obvious to me. I don't know how the IWC doesn't see it. This is gatekeeping by Kenny Omega. He has all of his little drone soldiers like Hangman Adam Page, Jungle Bitch, the Lieutenants, the Young Bucks. They all just don't want Punk to be successful. They want Punk out of the company. They will do anything, whether it's sabotaging his travel, whether it's getting in his face, calling him out during the pay-per-view. They will do everything in their power to get a rise out of CM Punk. And you guys turn and you look at CM Punk and you go, you have to be the bigger man. A lot of people aren't built that way, guys. There's a lot of grown-ass men aren't built that way. The part I'm having a hard time comprehending is that Tony Khan and his want to hold on to CM Punk. I don't get it. I think Tony Khan has this visceral fear deep down inside that if he fires CM Punk, and I don't think CM Punk deserves to be fired, but it's obvious that Tony Khan's not going to handle this situation. So I think the right thing to do is to get rid of CM Punk at this point because Tony Khan has aligned himself with the Elite. So I think Tony Khan has this visceral fear of CM Punk leaving AEW and somehow finding a way back to WWE and becoming successful. Because I think on so many levels, that will expose so many problems inside of the AEW company. I mean, imagine CM Punk main eventing a WrestleMania. Imagine CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. That feels like that could be the biggest match of 2024. I honestly think I've said numerous times that I think CM Punk versus Kenny Omega is the biggest match you can make in wrestling right now. I think I stand corrected. I'd like to believe that if CM Punk jumps ship back to WWE, CM Punk versus Roman Reigns is probably the biggest match you could make in all of professional wrestling. How do you get there? CM Punk wins the Royal Rumble. It writes itself. It's right there for it to do. But it's obvious to me that Tony Khan, man, He has no ability to police his locker room at this point. He even came out and said it. I can't make guys get along. No, you can't. When you own and run a company, you very easily can make guys get along, or you can get rid of the problems. Like, that's one way to do it. And whether it's unrightfully CM Punk, whether he decides, which he never will, to get rid of the cancer that is the Elite, you have to do something. You have to do something. But it's obvious that Tony Khan is content with letting the Elite run the playground. And he's content with them attempting to get rid of anything they don't like. They want to run the world's biggest indie shows, and they will do it by any means necessary. And this is the issue. This is the issue I have with the court of public opinion. All the little IWC bitches that think CM Punk is wrong. Why isn't he fired yet? I mean, look, honestly, if CM Punk was at fault in any one of these situations, he would be fired. The problem is that I think when Tony Khan goes and gathers up all of the information, it becomes obvious in every circumstance that CM Punk has to be punished for retaliation and not for starting the shit. That's the only explanation that makes sense. If he started any of this shit, I guarantee you he's fired. He's out the door without any complaint of anybody. If CM Punk starts this shit, you're gone. But this is what doesn't get talked about for guys like Edge. Anybody who's considering AEW as an option. It doesn't get talked about enough is that any talent considering going to AEW that feels like they're on a higher level than Kenny Omega or the Young Bucks, they're not going to find success in AEW. Name one guy who's jumped ship from WWE to AEW that was perceived to be a bigger star than Kenny Omega that has found success. CM Punk, they're not letting him find success. Miro, they're not letting him find success. Even Cody was kind of forced off to the side because I think he just didn't operate in the exact way that the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega wanted that company to go. And I think Cody saw the writing on the wall and said, hey, not going to make a big shtick about this. Don't want to ruin our friendship, but I'm going to take my talents to the other company and kind of work that lifestyle. Omega has to be top dog. He's just not an alpha. He can't do it by using his talent, so he has to use the mean girl mentality. And the Young Bucks have to be in control of the tag team division. They can't do it by being alphas. They have to do it by using a mean girls mentality. If you're Adam Cole, you have to understand they only let you play on this playground because you're submissive to their rules. I think that they tolerate MJF because he stays far enough away from them. But name anybody who's gotten ahead. If I was Tony Khan, at this point, I cut my losses. I fire CM Punk. I let him go. And I submit to the Elite. Because that's what he's done essentially without coming out and saying it. It's like one or the other has to go. It's CM Punk or it's the Elite. And I just don't see Tony Khan letting Hangman, Omega, the Bucks, Jungle Bitch, that whole part of the roster go. I think that's too deep of a hole to fill for him at this point. So it's got to be CM Punk, right? That's the core of his roster. That's who he's chose to ride with. And he's got to let CM Punk go. And if for some reason CM Punk finds a way back to WWE, then Tony Khan gets to watch how a real company handles a guy who has authority problems. And I believe that right now, in September of 2023, this is a real possibility. This is no longer a hypothetical like we used to bullshit about the last couple of months. I think that this is plausible that CM Punk reaches out to WWE to just gauge interest. Question is, would WWE entertain the return of CM Punk? Anybody remember a couple months ago when CM Punk was wandering around backstage in the WWE locker room? And it honestly, at the time, it was kind of reported that he was at least accepted and treated cordially by most people within WWE. Now, I know he was asked to leave, but that was right around the time that Tony Khan was bitching about all the contract tampering and things like that, even though it's obvious he does that shit with Edge and everybody else. But, he's the one to point it out. But you remember There was a point in time where CM Punk was walking around the back, and it felt like WWE didn't have a big problem with him. Now, you can hate CM Punk all you want. If you're part of the IWC, listen to me. You can hate him all you want, but here's the problem. Everywhere CM Punk has shown up, there's been an audience to watch what happens. He shows up in UFC, people are watching. Whether he goes there to get his ass kicked or to find success, people were watching. When he returned to wrestling in AEW, it was a major deal. It was a television spectacle. People were watching. And when he returned on Collision this last time holding the bag with the AEW belt, people showed up to watch. Whether it's to hate on him, whether it's to praise him, CM Punk makes television. And let's be honest, right? CM Punk is literally the reason that AEW Collision exists and is able to exist. Has there ever been an entire wrestling show other than Collision that was built on the back of one superstar? I'll wait. Name it. Tell me one. One show. Dynamite wouldn't succeed if it was just Kenny Omega and a bunch of nobodies. SmackDown wouldn't succeed if it was just Roman Reigns. Raw wouldn't succeed if it was just Seth Rollins or just Cody Rhodes. The fact is that CM Punk by himself with absolutely no help of Tony Khan is doing at least 500,000 viewers. That's not bad considering that you've strapped an entire show onto his back. Like, let's be legitimately real here. If I'm starting a wrestling company today, right now, I'm probably looking at who's available talent-wise, and I'm going, Roman's number one. If I can get Roman Reigns, I take Roman Reigns, start the company with Roman. Seth Rollins is probably number two. MJF is probably my third choice just based on age and the attention he can draw with the things he says. But CM Punk's four. That's a short list. There's zero chance I'm taking Kenny Omega. There's zero chance I'm taking Hangman Adam Page. There's zero chance I'm going after the Young Bucks. That's just reality. CM Punk sells tickets. CM Punk sells merchandise. People show up to watch CM Punk. And I honestly believe that this has been one of the most mishandled locker room situations in the history of pro wrestling. We got word that our boy John Cena is back for a nice little run on SmackDown. Since Hollywood has shuttered its doors, Cena is back for at least 7 consecutive SmackDowns, and I'm guessing that number is going to turn into more if Hollywood doesn't get its shit together and get my House of Dragons back onto HBO Max. I need my House of Dragons. I can't do this thing with these year-long breaks between shows. Get my House of Dragons back on the fucking television. But what if, hypothetical, what if all of a sudden, because this is what's happening, none of these actors have work. What if all of a sudden, all of these actors just start showing up in WWE or AEW or wrestling in general? What if we start getting guys like Jason Momoa and Vin Diesel showing up in pro wrestling in cinematic matches? That would be fun. I honestly think that could be fun. What if a company just decided because wrestling is somehow okay to film? What if somebody decided to take all of these Hollywood actors and start like a Hollywood wrestling style fight club? That shit would be funny. That shit would get over. Jason Momoa, Vin Diesel, you start Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, get all these guys and do these cinematic matches and just run it until Hollywood's back. To me, that works. It might be fun. But back to reality. So Cena, he's back for a nice little run. We're getting Cena 7 weeks at least. And the rumor is, and I don't even know if this is a rumor, I think I saw this posted on the WWE India Twitter account, so I think that makes it official. But the announcement is that John Cena and Seth Rollins will team up to take on Imperium at the Superstar Showdown in India. All right, cool. That's interesting. It's a little out of left field. Fuck the draft, right? Fuck the brand split. That's a bunch of Raw superstars. But, we made it 6 months half-ass pretending that there was a brand split. So I guess that's not bad. And I'm not mad at this booking, because if you look at it, this is a 7-week story that possibly leads to John Cena ending up in a match against Gunther, which I think is ultimately the right match to make. Who's better? Who's better suited to take the IC title off of Gunther than John Cena? It just absolutely makes sense, right? You take that, you have John Cena win the IC off of Gunther, then you roll Cena immediately into a program with Chad Gable. You have Gable inevitably take the IC title off of Cena, essentially protecting everybody involved, right? Because Gunther loses to Cena, which doesn't hurt anybody. Losing to John Cena doesn't hurt anybody. Gable gets the IC title. He gets a big win on his resume against someone like John Cena. Cena becomes a Grand Slam champion, and then you tie it up with a nice bow by bringing it all back around and let Gunther just smash John Cena, taking him off of television when Cena's ready to leave, and that works for everybody. That booking actually is a booking that works for all three guys and puts all three guys in a favorable position. But this is a wild thought. This is kind of fun to think about. 7 weeks is a long time. What if John Cena falls back in love with wrestling? What if there's like an introspective sit down with John Cena where he sits down and he thinks about it and he goes, man, 7 weeks, that was a fun run. What if we do this a little longer? What if 7 weeks turns into 7 months? Like, what if John Cena looks at himself in the mirror and goes, I after this year, I probably can't do this again. I'm getting up there in age. How long can I really come back and put in a solid wrestling run? The crowd still loves me. Hollywood's not going anywhere. I've proven what I can do in Hollywood. Maybe I go one last run all the way through WrestleMania. I can see that happening. I don't know I don't even know what the situation is in Hollywood to know what the expectation of that ending even is. But I mean, this is the same story that could hold true for somebody like Dwayne, right? For The Rock. I don't know what the status of Hollywood is, but I do know that if I'm WWE and I have any intention of doing The Rock versus Roman Reigns, this is the time to strike. All of the stars have lined up for you. I would be making that phone call right now. While The Rock can't book any more movies, I would get him locked into some kind of contract, some kind of story where he starts to feel that electricity of the crowd. He starts to kind of amp up. He has time to get back in shape, and you can do a run through WrestleMania with The Rock. This is your opportunity. That's when you strike. But here's a question. Here's a hypothetical question. What is the biggest match that you could make in 2024? Kenny Omega versus CM Punk? The Rock versus Roman Reigns? Roman Reigns versus CM Punk? Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins, which I think is a sneakily underrated possibility for WrestleMania? Or Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, which is what everybody believes we're actually headed to? You guys let me know which of those matches would be the biggest match of 2024. But what do you guys, what do guys like Cena and The Rock realistically have in the tank? I guess that's the bigger question, right? Because I think Cena wasn't phenomenal at WrestleMania, but that was a one-off. He wasn't bad. He wasn't terrible. He didn't stink the place up. I didn't think it was a great match, but I don't know if that was due to build. I don't know if that was due to Cena's ring rust. I don't know what it is, but what do these guys have left? What does The Rock have left in the tank? I mean, I know I don't want either of these guys carrying premium live events. I don't think they have that ability anymore. I think The Rock and Roman could give you one. They could give you one, but The Rock's not. I don't know that The Rock's carrying the load 3 or 4 months throughout the year. I know these guys can fill in. They can take a load off of Roman. Cena will be able to keep the ratings up on SmackDown while Roman Reigns takes whatever vacation he's on. But 7 weeks, man, that's a good amount of time. That's a good amount of time for Cena to work himself into the Intercontinental picture. It's probably going to be longer. I know you don't do John Cena versus Roman Reigns again. That story's been told. I don't want them doing that. I could see maybe going John Cena versus Solo Sikoa. Give him a little bit of a rub. That might be fun. Cena versus Seth Rollins. I could entertain that if it meant Seth Rollins turning heel and working a story with John Cena. I like that. But who knows? We have Cena on loan for 7 weeks at least. We'll see what Triple H decides to do with him. All right, so I guess we should take a moment to let's go over the Payback card. It makes sense. Spend a little time. This was a go-home Monday Night Raw, so we're headed into the premium live event. 6 matches. 6 matches on the card right now, and in a Grayson Waller segment. So either we get a last minute addition or these are the matches that we have, and these matches will actually be given some real room to breathe. Bloodline absent from the card. Some like it, some don't like it. I'm a fan. I think we needed a breath away from that story. So I'm okay seeing what other people can do. This is a good point in the year to kind of test the water and see, hey, who could sink or swim? Now, there's a part of me that's scared that they try to last minute throw something on the card like Jimmy versus Solo just for the name value, just to get the bloodline involved. But, I don't know if that match makes sense. But, look at the card. What's the main event on this card? It's got to be Seth versus Shinsuke, right? World Heavyweight Championship match. That makes sense. But this premium live event, man, it's a big moment for guys like LA Knight. Him and The Miz can steal the show. I think this card is primed for one of the undercard matches to kind of show up and show out. I really do. I don't know that Seth and Shinsuke will be the most talked about match come Sunday after Payback. So 6 matches. Let's run through them. I'm going to give you unofficial predictions without a lot of thought, but we'll talk about it. I think I'll give official predictions closer to Payback. Let's go Becky Trish. Steel Cage. Thoughts on this? This is absolutely the end of this story. I think it's run its course. There was a part of me that said I thought this was going to continue on, but I don't think so. I think the audience has had enough of this storyline. I don't think this hit quite the way that Triple H intended it to. I think they wanted this to feel like this was a match set up to claim who's the GOAT of the women's division. And instead, I think they just drugged this out until it overstayed its welcome. Pretty confident this is a Becky moment. I see Becky winning this match. I think there'll be shenanigans by Trish. I could see Lita or a surprise appearance here. I'm gonna unofficially take Becky Lynch, but there's a part of me that thinks Becky and Seth could be taking a vacation and that Trish may be moving forward into something else, maybe something against Zoe Stark. So maybe there's a possibility Trish goes over, but as of right now, unofficial prediction, Becky Lynch. Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez. There's 2 solid women's matches representing WWE on this card. I know that everybody wants to sleep on this card and kind of say, this is a down event, but there's a lot of young and fresh talent on this card that's going to be looking to establish themselves in that premium live event spectrum. Guys like LA Knight and I think Raquel Rodriguez, they have something to prove. And like I said, this event has breathing room for somebody to kind of show up and show out. So this premium live event feels eerily similar to Backlash to me, which ended up being a phenomenal show. And I'm not going to make the same mistake I did pre-Backlash and shit all over the card again. I think that Raquel Rodriguez, Rhea Ripley, I think it'll be a physical match. But I think, at this point, I'd bet the house on the fact that Rhea Ripley walks out of here as champion. If I was booking this show, I would have Raquel Rodriguez steal one here and begin kind of a back and forth between Rhea Ripley and Raquel Rodriguez that lasts all the way through WrestleMania. And let's get an actual rivalry going in WWE. One that feels balanced and not just 50-50 booking, but I'm talking serious kind of title going back and forth. We don't know who kind of the alpha is in that story. That would work. Don't think it's going to happen. Unofficial pick. WWE plays it safe. Rhea Ripley rolls on. Theory versus Rey Mysterio. Not too many expectations here. I think this may be possibly a setup for like a Santos heel turn. I don't think this is ultimately Theory's story anymore. I think he's kind of being written out of it. I think we're just closing the chapter on Theory. I think it's a safe bet that Rey Mysterio retains here. Would be, if we're playing fantasy booking, this would be a slick way for Theory to kind of gain some heat back if he was able to cheat his way to victory and regain the title. And I'm not going to lie, there's an opportunity here for a crazy moment and a crazy pop if Gargano and Loomis were to come out and help Theory pick up the victory against LWO here. None of them really have that much going on that you need to protect them. I think that they would work as a group. I think you would get a lot of entertainment value out of bringing that group back together. Why not? None of them are really doing anything. You could just take a shot here. Gargano could lead a group that was just hell-bent on protecting Austin Theory's United States Championship, leading ultimately to the group breaking up around WrestleMania and doing Austin Theory versus Johnny Gargano in a proper feud. Wishful thinking, probably not going to happen. Unofficial prediction, Rey Mysterio retains his title. KO and Sammy versus the Judgment Day. This one's fun. This one's fun because I don't know. I'm not confident in what I'm about to say here, but I'm going to say it. I think the titles are in jeopardy. I really do. I think this is the end of Sammy and KO. And I was asked in the Discord to talk about how I would book WWE out of the disaster that is the tag team division and having unified belts. How do you separate them? How do you move forward from this point? This is it. This is the prime moment. This has been set up. I hope this is the intention, even though I have doubts that it is. This is your moment to split these belts up. What you do is you have Finn Balor and Damian Priest win the belts at Payback, which leads to a couple weeks of them bickering back and forth, arguing as champions, defend it a couple times, figure out ways to overcome and win. But ultimately, every time they win, there should be this push and pull tension between the two. And then it all comes to a boiling point where they decide at a certain point in time, they just can't be partners. Look, we're not leaving the Judgment Day. We just can't be partners. So what they do is they take those two sets of belts, and Damian walks off with one of those sets of belts, and he goes, Dom, you're my new tag team partner. The precedent's already been set with Piper Niven. So this isn't we're not in uncharted territory here. We're allowed to just now pick new tag team partners. So Damian picks Dom, Finn picks JD, and now we have two separate tag team champions within the Judgment Day. Now we get JD integrated kind of on the outside, but inside of Judgment Day, we have Damian and Dom as tag team champions. And what you do is you have Damian and Dom go over to SmackDown, drop those belts to someone like the Street Profits, and there you go. You've got the belts broken up. You've got Finn and JD with a set of belts on Raw. You have Damian and Dom losing those belts, which leads to more turmoil within the Judgment Day. Damian can go on at that point in time. That'll be months down the road. He can cash in, win the World Heavyweight Championship, and all will be well in the world of the tag team division. That's how you do it. Unofficial prediction, I think Judgment Day wins the tag team belts. I don't know what WWE chooses to do with them. Seth versus Shinsuke Nakamura. This is Shinsuke's moment. You don't turn him heel. You don't give him this opportunity if you're not pulling the trigger at this point. The crowd is ready for this. Seth could use a break. He needs time to heal up. He needs to go away. He's kind of oversaturated. I think him and Becky, it's prime time. Let them take a vacation. Let them enjoy their family. Let them go enjoy life. They've given and given and given to this business. Let them both heal up. They can both return at Royal Rumble to enormous pop. And I think that the WWE will be fine without those two for the next couple of months. So let them do that. Shinsuke makes a great transitional champion. And I know people don't like when I say that, but that's what he's going to be. Shinsuke is going to be a transitional champion until they decide whatever's going on with Damian Priest, and they decide for him to cash in. It'll inevitably be more than likely on Shinsuke Nakamura. And so we're going to get to see 3 or 4 months of what Shinsuke can do as a world champion. We'll get to see what the IWC has been clamoring about for so long. This will keep the Shinsuke heel run alive. And I think it's all kind of written in the stars here. Prediction and new World Heavyweight Champion Shinsuke Nakamura. I saved the best for last here. LA Knight versus The Miz. It's put up or shut up time. This is it, man. We've been clamoring for this. We've all been yelling. I claim to have funerals. I've been upset. I've lost my mind. But this is it. This is the test. This is LA Knight has climbed to the top of a mountain. And he can either transfer over to that megastar mountain and continue climbing, or he can walk off the other side and just start to descend back down to normalcy. You know, the IWC, they say he can't be that guy. So he has to deliver. And if he delivers at Payback, the chains are off, man. The rocket ignites. The sky is the limit for LA Knight. So where do you go with him if he delivers? Your guess is as good as mine. But this match has so many implications beyond what's just on the surface for LA Knight. You know, did The Miz steal the spotlight on Monday Night Raw? Yeah. Did he shift some of the momentum? Yeah. So now we've got to see LA Knight be able to recover from a solid Miz appearance and put on a show. He's got a SmackDown and he's got a premium live event to win the crowd back. Prediction? LA Knight wins. I think that goes without saying, but that's not the important part here. The big key is, does LA Knight show up? Does he leave Payback still looking like a snowball rolling downhill, growing and getting bigger? Or does he leave Payback with everybody going, flash in the pan? Not the real deal. Can't hold his own against, when he gets put in the big leagues, can't hold his own. My prediction is he shows up and shows out, but we'll have to wait to see. Last, we're getting a Grayson Waller effect with Cody Rhodes. I'm guessing that this either turns into some kind of squash match, or this sets up Cody's next story. My bet is that it's Cody versus Waller just to appease the crowd. Would be fun, though. This would be fun. This is an opportunity here. If WWE wants to throw in a nice little surprise, get your spoiler alerts ready here. This could be a good time to return Randy. Randy Orton could make an appearance here. I have no expectation. I don't really think it's going to be Randy Orton. I just want to throw that into the world. Maybe it'll happen, but I expect some sort of surprise during this segment. You don't book this on a premium live event if it's just set up to kind of be a time filler. I think that this will set up Cody's next big story, and it's more than likely going to be somebody we're not expecting. So I know a lot of people are down on this card, but I have a very kind of tried and true system I use going into a premium live event that I call the 3-point metric. And that 3-point metric gauges my excitement for a premium live event. When I look at the card, I kind of look at how many matches do I have an emotional connection to. If it's less than 3, I'm not invested. Those are the cards that I shit on, right? If it's 3 or more, I usually feel like that's enough to pique my interest and get the Nerdy D excitement train going, which is right now we're fucking going right now. If you look at this card, Miz versus LA Knight, I'm invested. I have emotional investment in that. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Judgment Day, I got an emotional investment in that. Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez, I think I got emotional investment in that. Theory versus Mysterio, I think there's potential. I'm curious. Becky versus Trish, I'm tired, but I'm curious. And then Seth versus Shinsuke, I'm absolutely excited about. I think the possibilities are endless. So there's 4 matches there for sure that I'm excited about. And the other 2 that are on the card, I'm not mad at. All right, so change of gear here to something a little more fun and a little more random. But I saw a Reddit post this week talking about The Miz after he lit up Monday Night Raw with that promo, asking where The Miz fits on the all-time greatest heels list. And so there's no time like the present to let's work through the list. Let's see, where does Miz fall on this list? Here's the problem, though. There's a problem. When you make these lists, there's a bullshit that comes with having to add names to a list that you know existed. Guys like Ric Flair, Macho Man. And you recognize them as great, but I never saw them with my own 2 eyes. So instead of me doing the thing that I normally do where I just start, I rattle off a list of 15 names. I put guys on there because I know I'm supposed to. We're going to work this a little differently. We're going to use a method that I'm going to coin. We're going to build upon a shit list. So I'm going to go to Ranker, which is kind of the most obvious place where people go to rank things. And I'm going to find a list of the greatest heels. They're voted on by real life people. So I feel like they at least have a tiny bit of merit, even though it's obvious that I am smarter than 90% of these IWC fucks on the internet who vote on things like this and think they know wrestling. That's obvious. We can get that out of the way. You guys all know it. But I'm going to pull the top 15. If The Miz is on the list, cool. We'll adjust where he is. If he's not, we'll find out where we're fitting him in, because I'm confident that The Miz is at least a top 15 heel in the business. So here we go. We're going to take the shit list from Ranker.com, ranking the greatest heels of all time in pro wrestling, and we'll build upon it. So Ranker.com has number 1, Vince McMahon. All right. Number 2, Triple H. Number 3, Randy Orton. Number 4, Ric Flair. Number 5, Roddy Piper. Number 6, Chris Jericho. Number 7, Edge. Number 8, Ted DiBiase. Number 9, Paul Heyman. Number 10, Bobby Heenan. Number 11, Shawn Michaels. Number 12, Rick Rude. Number 13, The Miz. Interesting. Number 14, The Iron Sheik. And number 15, Randy Savage. So that's the shit list. That was done by Ranker.com. Don't blame me for what the fuck you see there. But this list has The Miz at number 13 all time. Honestly, that's higher than I expected to find him on a list that was made by the IWC. So this adds a little bit of difficulty for me because I thought that I was going to get to just look at a list of 15 people and add him in where I saw fit. But the Miz is a difficult guy to rank for me because he's literally the definition of like a pro wrestling gamer and not a video gamer. I mean, in sports, that's a term that means like a guy who shows up for the big moments. The Miz kind of rides the wave, right? When there's nothing going on, he's just a guy on the roster. But when you give him these personal feuds like LA Knight, he shows up and he shows out. Now, I can make an argument based on what I've seen just with my own 2 eyes and my personal experiences with pro wrestling. I can look at that list and make an argument that The Miz is top 5. Now, that's never going to fly. You guys are going to come for me. The IWC is going to come for me. But I never watched Roddy Piper. I never watched Ric Flair. So I don't have the same kind of allegiance to those names that most people do. So what I did is I jumped on to ChatGPT and I asked ChatGPT, I said, hey, tell me the top 10 heels of all time. And ChatGPT dropped me number 1, Ric Flair. Number 2, Roddy Piper. Number 3, Vince McMahon. Number 4, Triple H. Number 5, Iron Sheik. Number 6, Randy Orton. Number 7, The Miz. Number 8, JBL. Number 9, Brock Lesnar. Number 10, Edge. Interesting. That list would align way more with what I know about pro wrestling than the shit list that I got off of Ranker. But when we started this segment, we agreed we're going off of that list. So the original list is Vince, Triple H, Randy, Ric Flair, Roddy, Jericho, Edge, DiBiase, Heyman, Heenan, Michaels, Rude, Miz, Sheik, Savage. Not being able to move other people around, that makes this tough. Because the only thing I can do is move The Miz. And I'm tempted just to say, fuck you guys, put Miz at 4, turn the stream off, and let the internet come from my head. I'm not going to do it. I understand you got to be a little smarter than that. I think the safe bet, if I was a safe man, is just moving The Miz up a couple spots, slide him in front of Bobby Heenan at number 10, call The Miz a top 10 heel of all time. That seems like a logical things to do. But I'm not a safe man. I hold The Miz in very high regards. And I suffer from this disease. I don't know if I've told you guys about it, but I did get a diagnosis. And the disease is called recency bias. I suffer horribly from recency bias. And The Miz's promo this past week on Monday Night Raw was fire. So I'm going to take The Miz. I'm going to drop him number 7 on the shit list. Just 1 ahead of Edge. That's where I'm putting The Miz. I know that's going to piss people off. I really don't care. Miz is a top 10 heel of all time. That goes without saying. Vince McMahon, Triple H, Randy Orton, Ric Flair, Roddy Piper, Chris Jericho. Number 7, The Miz. Works for me. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. Tell me where you would have put The Miz. All right, I think we should end this episode in the mailbag. No longer going to do this rapid fire style. I'll just take a few of the emailed questions here. You can write into the show at questions@casualwrestling.com. Anything is fair game. It can be wrestling related. It could be anything off topic. Anything you want me to answer, drop it in that email. I'll pull it up and we'll talk about it. It can be my favorite flavor of ice cream if that's what you want to know. By the way, it's vanilla. So let's go. First question comes from Darnell Waverly out of Maine. He asks, should Uncle Howdy be retired or continue on Bray Wyatt's legacy? He's done. It's done. The Bray Wyatt saga is done. There's no way. I don't think there's any way to do that tastefully. That was Bray's baby. That was Bray's universe. And I think anything they do at this point would probably be opposite of what he intended it to be. I think that if Bo Dallas wants to be a part of WWE should absolutely find a way to utilize his talents and continue him on in the company. But I think, look, as romantic as it sounds to kind of continue on Bray's legacy, I think that you let the legacy stand as it is, because I think that moment in time with Bray Wyatt kind of speaks for itself. Second question comes from Sebastian Lockhart out of Oregon. He asked, thoughts on AEW giving CM Punk the wrong phone number in Wembley and having him take a train with fans. So I don't know, is this confirmed? Is this one of the confirmed things, or is this another speculation? Because if this is real, this just is the definition of shit show. This is the definition of AEW and shit show. And it's more than likely the results of a sabotage by Kenny Omega and the Elite. And if you are one of these IWC assholes who still thinks that these guys don't deserve their ass whooped on a weekly basis, fuck you guys. I'm not showing up halfway around the world to call a phone number that you gave me, and it bounces back, and I have no idea where I am. I have no idea how to get where I'm going. And you don't think I'm not showing up to the event already in a bad mood? Then I show up and a 4'7" jungle bitch calls me out on television, and you think that little motherfucker ain't getting choked out when I show up? If this is true, if somebody can show me and confirm this, number one, fuck the Elite. Number two, fuck Tony Khan. Those are baby back bitch moves. Third question from Colin in Michigan. No last name, Colin. He asked, who is the most overrated wrestler in either company right now? Eddie Kingston. That's easy. I don't understand Eddie Kingston. I don't get it. What is the appeal of Eddie Kingston? Like, what is the love that this man gets in the pro wrestling ring? It feels like every promo he cuts, he's just whining. He has one of the corniest movesets I've ever seen in pro wrestling. And every time I watch him on TV, he reads to me as fake tough guy. Eddie Kingston, most overrated wrestler in all of pro wrestling. But that is it for this week, guys. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check out the Champ and the Chick that will post next week for the first time. Make sure to check out the Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown post shows. Those will be on both YouTube and podcast networks. And look out for any hot takes that I drop this week. Those will be exclusive to YouTube. Keep hitting that like button. You guys are the gas on the fire that grows this channel and grows this community. Tell your friends to tell a friend to watch this show, watch this channel. Spam the casual community every chance you get in every other wrestling Discord, every other wrestling forum. Make sure you let them know the casual wrestling community is a place to hang out. And I'll leave you guys, as always, with the saying, keep it casual. I'm tapping out.
Step in the ring, if you ready, let's go. Hey, casual wrestling community show. You already know, talking WWE. Keep it rolling and hosted by Notorious NerdyD. Dope show that you gon' find. Tune in cause it's online. Hit 'em with a figure 4 leg lock, power driver or clothesline. We bringing that heat like the show, but you should already know the casual wrestling community show. Let's go. Yeah, Notorious NerdyD.